What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Bleach: The Thousand Year Blood Wars. This is episode four. Yeah, episode four. With me, as always, I have Blue Spit.
Yeah, this was a really dark and one-sided slaughter, against the Soul Reapers in this episode. It's also the fact that I've never seen Byakuya like just being pushed against the wall like this. Just the way, like, how incredibly vulnerable, like, not just Byakuya but practically every single top tier Soul Reaper in the Soul Society.
Yeah, because as like Renji mentions, it seems like it's impossible to fight them without Bankai.
And even if they try to use Bankai, the Quincy's will end up using some kind of device that'll end up stealing their Bankais permanently, or however. Maybe there's a possibility for them to get it back, but as of right now, we still don't know the reason or the purpose of why they want to absorb their Bankais. And Ichigo even asks that question, but he never really gets an answer out of it.
Yeah. But yeah, this episode actually starts off with like a somewhat of a recap of the first three episodes for some reason.
Yeah.
I know they kind of did this at times in the original series, but they didn't really do it too much. It was mostly like, I remember it mostly happened during the Arrancar arc. There'd be some episodes where they decided to like recap certain things.
I don't know what the reason is for them to just recap the first three episodes like that, because it hasn't been that long, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe I really wish
I think the recaps used to happen like after like filler arcs or whatever, just so people would remember like what was going on in the canon arc.
Yeah, it's I don't really feel like the whole recap segment was really even necessary. Maybe they just didn't have specific material to put in to fill out the episode, but who knows. But like I said, it's just the 13 Court Guard squad and all of their units just completely get annihilated in this episode. Just, they said like over 1,000 Soul Reapers have been killed within the first few minutes of the battle.
Yeah. And then we get like, basically we see each captain facing off against each of the different the Sternritter, and we get an introduction to each of the Sternritter. Some of the ones I remember, like, there's Bambietta, Asnot, and I forget the other ones, but we basically get introduced. Like, I think there's maybe like 5 different Sternritter that they show off, like fighting against the captains.
Yeah,
and
I mean, we pretty much see Renji, Byakuya, Toshiro, Komamura, and I think trying to remember everyone else here. I think it was there
was the other guy fighting the captain of Kira's squad.
I think Shunsui. Yeah, I think that guy.
Oh yeah, and Shunsui.
Yeah, it did. The episode just pretty much jumps practically almost all over the place, showcasing what each captain and lieutenant is doing. And of course, they hear news of what happened to Kira after he got his entire torso blasted out. And so it gets to the point where every single most of like 4 of the captains, especially Byakuya and Toshiro, start activating their Bankais. But of course, like we predicted, they get their Bankais absorbed by them using some kind of device of sorts, and they're pretty much they all have their backs against the walls to the point where they're literally only forced to use their Shikai forms.
Yeah, like the main fight that really gets focused on is the Renji versus Asnot, Renji and Byakuya versus Asnot, and Byakuya actually ends up getting injures Asnot to some extent, but of course, as we see, like his Bankai ends up getting stolen. Of course, Renji tries to fight him, but Byakuya stops him because Renji's Bankai could also be stolen.
Yeah, well, And of they, I mean, Byakuya did mention that, like, that Renji should use his Bankai if something were to, if something like this were to happen. But unfortunately, like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just he goes back on it and just tells Renji that we have to fight him in the more conventional way. But um, it's just as of right now, like, it gets so bad to the point where they're forced to contact Ichigo. But unfortunately, Ichigo is still busy fighting Kilgate and Waco Mundo. But during
Well, and the way that the captains even find out that their Bankai can be stolen as well is because we do see the fight between I forget the name of the Stern Ritter they're fighting, but the Toshiro fighting the Stern Ritter. He, of course, we see his Bankai getting stolen, which is well, here is Hyoranmaru Bankai. It gets stolen, and he basically instructs Rangiku to. I forget what this ability is, but I didn't even know she could do this. But she uses some ability that I guess sends out a message across Soul Society that basically the Bankai, all their Bankai can be stolen.
And I think Soy Phone is Bankai's also gets stolen, and yeah, like I said, it gets so bad to the point where they literally have to call Ichigo while he's fighting against Kilge. But of course, fortunately, I think he gets the message, and then Kilge gets like a hole blasted in his chest by Uruhara, and Uruhara, of course, opens a portal to the Soul Society for Ichi to go to. But
I
unfortunately,
think it's called a Gargantua or something. The hole he opens.
Yeah, I forgot what that was called back then, but as soon as Ichigo is about, well, actually no, before this, Kyogate tried to absorb Ichigo's Bankai, but like Eborn before, he's unable to absorb the Bankai for whatever reason. Yeah. Well, it's just.
Well, and Urahara also, I think, conveys this, that Ichigo's Bankai seems like it can't be stolen. So he's pretty much the exception. So that's like another reason why they really want Ichigo to come help out.
Yeah, it's not really known as to why Ichigo's Bankai can't be stolen from the Quincy's, unless if there's some underlying reason. Maybe it's just because he's a substitute Soul Reaper, or he's part hollow, or
I think spoilers, but yeah, I think I know the reason, but I think that gets revealed later. Yeah, so he does try to go and use the Gargantua to go to the Soul Society, but of course, right before he can get through to the Soul Society, it gets closed off by Kilge, and he ends up getting like put into some kind of reishi cage or something.
Yeah.
So he can't get out. And we also find out that Urahara, Orihime, and Chad, at least Urahara, he'd let his guard down because he thought that, Kilge had been defeated. But as we learned, he hasn't been defeated yet, because we see that he put a hole in Chad and Orihime, and he had gotten back up. So he's basically, because he's been instructed not to let Ichigo get through to the Soul Society. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. So, I guess the fight with Kilge isn't really over yet. But I thought this was a really good episode. The other thing, too, I kind of thought was funny after episode 3 was that it almost seems like the Quincy's are like afraid of Ichigo, because like as soon as they found out that Ichigo was not, was being distracted by Kilge, they're like, okay, well, now it's time to go invade Soul Society. Ichigo's gone. And so it is going to be interesting to see, like, when Ichigo gets back to the Soul Society, like, I feel like they're all just going to be like, oh no, what do we do now? Ichigo's here. But he might, I feel like he'll probably get there too late though. Like he'll probably get there after they've all been defeated or something.
Yeah. It's not looking good for the entire Soul Society. It's just a massive slaughter just on one side.
Yeah. But I thought it was a good episode. It actually felt like I heard that it did adapt like 5 chapters, but apparently those chapters that adapted were mostly fight scenes. So it didn't really feel as rushed as the last episode did.
Yeah. Speaking
of
that, people have been having like several complaints about how the last episode was adapted, about how several scenes
Yeah.
from the manga were cut and not put into the anime. For me, like, I don't really have a problem with it. Is like I don't think some of the scenes that were cut was even necessary to be in there in the first place.
Yeah, people were. I think the main thing people were upset about was the meeting between the lieutenants being cut. But it was also pointed out that the conversation the lieutenants were having in the meeting was pretty similar to the conversation between Mayuri and the cat and Yamamoto. Basically, they kind of go over the same thing because the lieutenants were kind of like speculating as to like what was going on with the disappearances in the Rukon district, which in the next scene, of course, we get confirmed a reason for why that was happening by Mayuri in that conversation. So I guess, people were saying that scene didn't really need to be in there. It was mostly just kind of there to reintroduce like Renji and Rukia. But of course, it got cut.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we do get to finally see Renji for the first time since the season started, but we still have yet to see Rukia again. I mean, we did barely see her by the end of the last episode, but we don't really get to see her fighting the Quincy's in this episode from what I can tell right now.
Yeah, and also supposedly like with these fight scenes, there was actually according to manga readers, there were quite a few like anime original scenes. Like some of the fight scenes got extended, like the fight with Renji between Renji, Byakuya, and Aznat. There were some scenes in there. Like I guess the Senbon Zakura scenes where he actually inflicted some damage on Aznat. That was actually an anime original scene, people were saying. And some of the scenes between, like I think also the scene with Toshiro and his fight scene some of those scenes were also anime original apparently. So that's kind of interesting. That we're actually getting like, I guess they were saying that we might get extended fight scenes. So I guess that's kind of what they're doing in this episode, is they're actually giving us more of those fight scenes, or just more seeing more context of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
That we didn't get in the manga.
Yeah. I mean, so far the pacing of the series is still pretty decent so far. I don't think I don't think like many of the cuts.
I think it was also like some other scenes from the manga had to get cut so that these fight scenes could be extended. Because there were some scenes, some parts of the fight with Kyuuge that were in the manga that we didn't see in the last episode. Like the Arrancar girls, like there was, for example, like there was a scene where Orihime was healing the Arrancar girls. We didn't get to see that; they just came back. There was a scene where like they were trying to hide from Kyuuge at one point. Kyuuge like found them, and that was cut out. So like stuff like that. I mean, it's not a big deal, but like I feel like some of that was cut just so that we could get more of these other fight scenes in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I still think the pacing of the for this adaptation it's still pretty decent. I don't think like it did those cuts really detracted from anything from what we've seen from the show so far.
No. Yeah, but yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent episode for the most part. I thought, in terms of, I know some people were complaining about the animation in the last episode, but I didn't really have any issues with it in this one. I didn't really notice it too much in the last episode, but people were, I guess, with the Kyuuge fight, they were complaining about like, obvious like looping animations and stuff, and I didn't really see it until like I had it like pointed out to me. But it didn't really look that bad even then. But I didn't really notice anything in this episode. Maybe some people, might have had some issues with some of the animation here, but I thought it looked good for the most part. So I don't know. I didn't really see any issues with it. I also like how they kind of, I guess you could say they somewhat redid Zenbone Zakura in a way, and it looks a little bit different than it did in the original series. I kind of like what they did there.
Yeah, I still like the animation style of how they handled the Senbon Zakura, especially the Bankai version, Kageyoshi. Honestly, they made it a lot more cinematic than they did in the first season.
Yeah, there's a lot more like petals flying around and stuff, and I think that's because they're kind of using CG as well with the Senbon Zakura.
Yeah, it's a little bit different considering that A lot of the Senbon Zakura effects were all hand drawn back in the first season.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the episode. It was definitely a good episode. And I think we really needed it to be a good episode after the last episode was, I guess a little bit controversial with some of the fans. I don't really anticipate this one will be as controversial, but I mean, who knows? So I don't know if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, it was still a decent episode, an action-packed one, especially of how dire the situation is for the Soul Society.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to next Monday. This is probably like out of all the series, this is probably the one I look forward to the most out of, when new episodes come out. So,
yeah.
Looking forward to next Monday. So, that all being said, guys, until then, we will see you all next time.